All right. Hello, everybody. It's 6:30, and we will get going with episode 5 now of our series, Let's Talk About Work in Equitation. This series is an educational effort of Indiana Work in Equitation Association. But of course, anybody anywhere is welcome to listen in. Today, we will go over the rules for the ease of handling trial. We covered all the obstacles in the previous 2 episodes. If you missed an episode, they all are available on Indiana Working Equitation Association's Facebook page if you look on the video tab. And if, as usual, if you have any questions on the previous videos, feel free to type them in the comments, and I will go back and answer them all. So let's talk about ease of handling. Ease of handling could be a little intimidating for new writers because there are lots and lots of rules and there are lots of ways to get disqualified. Do not get discouraged. Disqualification is not the end of the world. All of us done it once or twice or many times, and that's the way you learn how to not disqualify in this particular rule. But let's talk about the trial in general. Even though the rule book recommends a large arena, 70 by 40 meters, the reality is, particularly in the northern locations, if you're showing off-season, winter or even fall, due to bad footing, you often stuck in the indoor. And it's entirely possible to put an adequate ease of handling course in, let's say, a large dressage arena size kind of indoor. So be prepared that you may not have as much room as you think you might. Having said that, ease of handling is a sport of an agile and adjustable horse, so that small arena should be a good test of your skills. The rules pretty much are similar to maybe set up to hunter jumpers or eventers. The horse does not see the course, the rider does. The riders get a chance to walk the course. Usually the course walk is anywhere between 15 to 30 minutes. And usually a judge or course designer is present, and it is allowed to ask questions, and you should ask questions about obstacles. Now, if you ask, well, what's the best way to ride this obstacle, they're probably not going to get a good answer. But if, for example, there's an obstacle without an entry marker and you're not sure where your transition should be, ask the judge, where should the transition be placed for this particular obstacle? Ask the judge if they have preference for change of direction in, for example, livestock pen. Some judges do not like when the horse changes gaits and let's say from trot to walk to change, and others are fine with it. If there's a junior rider, a trainer or parent may accompany them and may ask a question, but otherwise only the rider themselves may ask the question of the judge. And then after the ease of handling course walk, you will have about 15 minutes before the first rider is asked on the course, so you can get tacked up and ready to go. An important note, when you do show up for your course walk, you should be wearing your competition attire, your boots if you're wearing them. Jackets are not necessary, helmets not necessary, but otherwise you should be turned out professionally and ready to ride. Let's see. An important difference in work in equitation and, let's say, dressage is that sometimes show managers do assign times, but those times are generally a guideline, or basically it's an order of go. If you ever shown dressage, you know, if you have, let's say, 9 a.m. Test assigned, that's your time. Even if the show runs ahead, you are entitled to wait for your 9 o'clock spot. In work in equitation, it is the rider's responsibility to keep track of the order of go. So even if, let's say, the show management assigned you that 9 a.m. spot, but you're a third rider from the beginning, let's say, and first two disqualified on the first two obstacles, you probably going to go much sooner than you anticipated. That's a difficulty with the sport. A good show organizer will make sure that the gate paddock steward and the gate steward will help you keep track of who's going next. But something to be mindful of, even if you do see a start list, Hashakar, with the assigned time, you do not own the time. You just own the order of go. Now, the course maps, minimum required is to make the course maps available to competitors 2 hours prior to competition. They could be posted at the secretary's office. Now everything's electronic and digitized. It's quite common to email the riders PDF files with the maps, which actually makes it a little easier. You can simply carry your phone with you on course to follow the map along, but the hard copy should be also available. The course should be written in the order that's placed. Every obstacle is numbered. However, how you get between those obstacles are entirely up to you. Always the most direct, the shortest route is the best, is the highest degree of difficulty. However, you have to take into account your horse's level of preparedness and what he's able to do at the moment. For example, I ride a big heavy horse, and sometimes a short line is not enough for him to show a balanced approach to the next obstacle. So it's entirely acceptable to take a longer line, maybe circle right or left, to show a better presentation, more balanced presentation to the obstacle. But again, if the horses are equal and one rider took more direct approach, that the rider will score higher. All right, Shakar, we'll see you in and out. So that's navigation. The numbers are considered a part of the obstacle. So this is a new amendment in the latest edition of the rule book. So if you happen to knock down or knock aside a number, it will dink your mark, it will bring it lower. Now, if you riding an obstacle, let's say you have a rein back and you knocked a part of the obstacle down, that will bring you down into negative score territory. And when I talk about negative scores, we score in working equitation out of 10 points, and 4 and below is considered negative. 4 would be insufficient, and half points are allowed. But you will get a score. If you happen to knock down a part of the obstacle that's necessary for completion of this obstacle, for example, if you had to do a switch cup and the horse twitched and knocked over the pole where you need to place your cup on, you cannot finish the obstacle without having this pole upright. The rider has to dismount, fix whatever obstacle they happen to destroy, remount, and finish the obstacle. That will probably garner a negative score as well. There is an exception for children, intermediate, and novice riders, which is level 2 and 3. If those riders do not wish to dismount, they have an option of asking the judge permission to take a 0 for this obstacle instead, so it remains incomplete. Riders above the novice level, intermediate and above, must dismount and fix the obstacle, otherwise they're disqualified. The new rule book, the new edition rule book, specifically states that it is allowable to have a mounting block in the show arena. So if you have concerns that you may not be able to remount, if the show management didn't provide a mounting block, if you have yours with you, perhaps ask permission to place it there. But if you place it in there, it will have to stay for all competitors. You can't just bring it for your own ride. If you dropped an object, let's say the same cup or jug or garocha, the riders at children's and intro level simply have the object handed back to them and they get a lower score. Novice riders have to dismount, pick it up, and remount, they do have an option of, again, asking permission to take a 0. Riders on the intermediate and above must dismount, pick up the object, remount with the object in hand, which is important, and then complete the obstacle. Now, if you take in a 0, be mindful that at novice level, if you receive 3 zeros on course, you will not be allowed to ride in a speed trial. Now, there's one more way to get a 0 on an obstacle is if your horse refuses. For intermediate level and above, 3 refusals on the obstacle will constitute a disqualification. And refusal would have to be a horse actively moving away from the obstacle, either backing or going sideways. There's also disqualification for 15 seconds of refusal to move on, inability to move on. However, for novice riders, if the horse refused 3 times, or even in introductory in children's, the rider may ask permission of the judge to move on and receive a 0, but that's no disqualification, so you will still receive the score for the rest of your ride, and the trial will be considered completed. Which is important because, a little quick side note, Confederation for Work in Equitation offers awards for riders for achieving various scores at various levels. Only scores attained when at the show when the rider completed all trials count towards it. So if you disqualified an ease of handling, no matter how good the score, even if it's a qualifying score, it will not count towards rider awards. So that's an important one to keep in mind. All right, so that's the zeros. So now we walked the course, we saw the map, we asked the judge questions, we perhaps walked it again. An important fact to know, the judge in work and equitation stands somewhere in the arena. And it could be anywhere, whatever the judge finds the spot where he or she can assess the course completely without moving from that one spot. If you're riding with a jury of judges, so there'll be 2 or 3 or up to 5 of them throughout the course, once the judges pick their course for this particular class, pick their place, they will stay there. So it's entirely possible that you walked your course, you have your plan in hand, and you walk in only to find out that the judge is directly in your line of approach to particular obstacle. So you got to be prepared to be flexible. Do not ride straight at the judge. They're not supposed to move. You just supposed to have a plan B or C. But as we said, the lines are flexible. You can design your approach differently, and it will be acceptable. Now, you may be allowed to enter the course while the judge finishes scores for the previous rider, or you may not be allowed to do that, and that is entirely up to the judge. And the reason being that showing the horse an obstacle overtly is an offense that garners disqualification.